Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's Watercooler Wednesday with a super special guest, Heidi Mollentze. This is such an honor. Heidi is coming to us straight from South Africa,
Yes.
which is apparently going through a lot of things right now. But Heidi was just telling me about that, and I'll have her tell us a little bit about what's going on with COVID and all of the things. But Heidi is an internationally accredited life coach and neurolinguistic programming practitioner. She's a certified hypnotherapist, rapid transformational therapist. She focuses on everything from self confidence and self esteem, helps people with public speaking, communication. She works on anxiety and stress, weight and health management. I could definitely use that, especially after this time in COVID. So Heidi does everything. And by the way, in the bio she sends, she doesn't even mention that she is an actress as well, multilingual actress, right? In
Yes.
English and Afrikaans, is that right?
Right.
So
That's right.
Heidi is incredible. Her resume, she just does everything. So welcome, Heidi.
It is such an honor to be here. Thank you for having me. I've been very excited and looking forward to this.
Yes, me too. Heidi and I had this sort of conversation, like a meet and greet before coming in here cold, and it was such a fascinating conversation because we're so passionate about very similar things, and specifically, we really changed sort of what we thought the topic was going to be today based on our conversation. But what we did want to discuss is emotional intelligence and empathy and its importance as we begin to reconnect and come out of this period of solitude that we've been in. So I think it's important to give some context because here in America we are kind of moving on from COVID, and there's like the Delta variant is starting to make some noise, but we're kind of like just like yeah, that's whatever, we're out. What's happening
Yes.
over there in South Africa?
Well, we are in the grips of it. We are stuck for the moment with this Delta variant. And it's proving to be far worse than the first and the second waves. So we are in our third wave now, and we've been on level 4 lockdown, which for us means no alcohol sales. Restaurants were closed again for 2 weeks. Gyms are closed. Schools are closed. It's quite bad. It is quite bad, and I just feel with everybody around me and myself, my family, my friends. If you see what people are talking about on social media, how this is really affecting people emotionally and mentally. And then I've also heard from my friends who came down with COVID, the Delta strain specifically, how this is an emotional war to fight, a mental war to fight, how forgetfulness and stress, anxiety, sleeplessness, and all of that affects people who have COVID, who are trying to get over COVID, but also the family and the friends. You actually cannot believe the personality effects on the personalities of these people that this disease has. It is real and it's scary. And I think the whole challenge is to not let it get to us, to fight valiantly, to stay positive, to make a concerted effort. Now, at this stage, especially in my country where we have civil unrest at the moment, majorly in my province and in a province called KwaZulu Natal, and billions of rands of damage. looting, plundering. It is crazy. So we have to make a concerted effort to be positive, to keep fighting, to prop each other up emotionally and mentally. It's not going to come by itself at the moment. And I don't think it will for anybody across the world. Over the last year or few months, 12 months, 14 months, things have changed radically. And we have to change.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And when I said, "Hey, how you doing?" Like when you first logged in here, you're like, "Well, my place is surrounded." So I don't know quite how literally it's surrounded, but with civil unrest, and
Yeah.
it seems like the world has gone mad in a lot of ways. I know when I got back on an airplane for the first time since COVID began. A couple months ago, I finally started traveling and got back on an airplane, and I was so scared because around here you see on the news all these people attacking flight attendants and fights over mask or no mask.
Yes, yes, I heard about that. It seems like over there people can get really, really emotional, right? And it is definitely, or COVID definitely has something to do with this. People behaving somewhat irrationally, and when you least expect it. I think people don't know themselves so much anymore. And that brings me back to the place where I'm saying we have to adapt. We have to change. Um, it's not going to be go with the flow anymore. We have to watch ourselves. We have to have our own back and each other's back. And because we like we said to each other when we met each other and we had our wonderful conversation, uh, the only constant is change. As
Yeah,
corny as that may seem,
right,
or may sound,
right,
change
yes,
is the only constant. Get with
yeah,
it. Get with the
exactly.
program.
But people don't like change. Although now I'm seeing people a little bit more open to it than ever before. Maybe because we are right in the process of this change, and a lot of people don't want to stop right here, so they want to continue changing to what they call the new normal. Um, as an aside, you're getting so much love in the chat right now. Everybody's saying hi, so thank you, all of you who are logged in. And we have a message from Juanita who says, "We're in crazy times, feels like we're in a movie." And it's
Yes.
so true. And I wonder, hi, Casey, and I wonder why this tragedy, this trauma, because we've had shared trauma in the past. And in those experiences, it's sort of like we came together often. And here, it's like we said, everybody's losing their mind. And also, it seems like we're going to opposite ends of the spectrum. Everybody's becoming a radical on one side or the other of every issue. Why do you think that is specifically happening now?
Yeah, it is strange. Yes, the vaxxers and the anti-vaxxers wearing a mask and fighting against wearing a mask. I wonder if it has to do with the fact that we cannot see our enemy. We would hope that because it's everybody's enemy. We are all fighting the same thing across the world, across the globe. I sometimes think about this. It's actually amazing how people across the world on this planet, we are all in one way or another aware of and fighting this thing called COVID 19. That is unprecedented, I think, for modern times anyway. And I think that may be very overwhelming. And then couple that with the fact that we cannot see this thing. It's one thing to fight an enemy that you can see coming, but this is an invisible enemy. And I think that scares the living daylights out of any ordinary human being.
Yeah.
I think that must be. Otherwise, what? And just that makes us feel unsafe. It makes us feel insecure. It makes us feel unsure. It's uncertain. It's unseen. All these uns. I think people are then lashing out, and reaching out in a way that they don't know how to reach out, and that then becomes a lash out,
Yeah.
because of all these uns, uncertain, unseen,
I, I
invisible.
I love that, the sort of like the invisible enemy.
Yeah.
So I was in South Dakota and got this cab ride to the airport, 4 o'clock in the morning. This giant veteran, all tattooed and everything, in the middle of South Dakota, which is in the middle of nowhere if you're from the Northeast in America, and
Yes,
uh,
yes.
and I'm like, so I sit down and we start talking, and it turns out that this guy is in school, training to become an IO psychologist,
Mhm.
which is IO psychology is what I practice, and so we started talking about everything, and it turns out he works with people with PTSD, and so
Wow.
post traumatic stress disorder, and what he was very interested in is how a lot of times when people have PTSD, they sort of, it's very inward, right? The whole
Mm,
thing comes from
mm,
the inside. But
mm.
some people, instead of sort of this self misery and stress and everything, they lash out, sometimes physically, violently. They lash out at other people, and that was his big question, like, why does that happen? And we
Yes,
spoke about that, and it's really, when the enemy is within or cannot be seen, it's this invisible enemy. I think we kind of have to create the physical manifestation somewhere. So maybe it's
yes,
the opposite political party, or the
yes,
person who's saying do wear a mask when I think you shouldn't wear a mask, or whatever it is.
yes, and because also our vaccines, for example, the thing that is supposed to help us and save us, are also under question. Which vaccine do we get? Will we get vaccines? If you're in a third world country like me, we don't have enough vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually had the wrong batch of vaccines that didn't work for the second strain, the beta. We
Mm-hmm.
it was the wrong vaccine. So we were sitting here thinking, okay, now what?
Right,
Um, so that just adds fuel to the fire.
right,
So, absolutely, then lashing out at something or someone, that is visible or tangible is makes sense. It absolutely makes sense.
right.
But then one would still think that this is the time where people who are emotionally strong, who have um, made an effort to think about their emotional intelligence and to perhaps hone that skill, because you can acquire it, would pull together and prop the others up and create an upstream where we can all help each other up, instead of the flow to the sides where people are lashing out at each
Mm-hmm.
other.
Yeah, and that
What it's crazy. Yes, please go
right.
ahead.
But that brings us to this question, because ready or not, here in America, we're starting to re-enter the physical workplace. Some of us are going virtual and remote, but as life starts getting into that new normal or back to normal, we're now going to be faced with people with opposite ideologies and things like that. And besides for the enemy being this invisible thing, we were also in solitude. And so we were
Mhm,
all in our own echo chambers, and
mhm.
only, and not, we weren't forced to be exposed to people who might believe things differently than us, or think differently, or whatnot. And now, but that's part of the beauty of work, is the diversity, right? And so we're
Yeah.
coming back to that diversity, and it doesn't seem like we're ready for that, the diversity of thought, the way we see people acting. So how can those people that are in tune with their emotional intelligence, how can they navigate this? Do you have any tips for people as they re-enter the workplace?
Yes, and it's it might be really odd. I mean, you're not used to working in an environment where other people are. You used to working at home during COVID times. Now you're going back, and somebody might be slurping their tea or
Right.
chewing really loudly, or coming into your office without knocking,
Yeah.
or
There's no mute button on real life. Right.
no, no. So I can imagine, and imagine if you were somebody who loved working at home, and
Hmm.
now you have to go back. You discovered you loved working at home. You loved it, and now you have to go back.
Right.
I think number one thing to do would be to ask yourself, uh, is my reaction relative to what the irritation around me
Mm.
is? So if somebody is chewing their tea time cookie rather loudly, does that warrant a lash out? Does that warrant a verbal altercation? I think not. I
Right.
think if somebody for a week on end comes into your office without knocking, that might warrant, please, may I speak to you about something situation. But we're going to have to all watch ourselves
Yeah.
very, very closely. And I suggest that a good dose of empathy will really, really see you through. Because
Yeah.
the person chewing their cookie loudly in your ears and barging into your office is also, for all practical purposes, trying to adapt.
Right.
Maybe that person also forgot their manners at home. Maybe
Right.
that person also would have liked to rather work from home. And this is how they are trying to get back into the swing of things. And
Right.
I think that leadership at this stage is incredibly important. The leaders in an office, the leaders of a group, the leaders of a team now need to step up and really do that word justice, leader. Um,
Hmm.
and call people together and have open conversations and have open discussions, and reminding each other what we have been through. We made it. We came this far after a year and 4, 5, 6 months of a very real threat and great uncertainty. The universe brought us back to this place where we work. What are the common things we have in common instead
Yeah.
of what the differences are? What are we here for? And then it's I think it's also worth remembering that we are there to work in the first place. It is not your lounge anymore. It is not where everybody in the house is going to do as you expect them to do,
Yeah.
because it's a communal area. So it's a give and take, an emotional give and take, I would say. But
Right.
we need leadership right now. What do you think? How
Yeah.
are we going to do this?
So, first, as the father of five kids, I don't know what you mean when you say everybody does what you expect of them. That does not happen at my home office. So, I'm already set to be back in the workplace because I've got the right training. The workplace is going to be easy after that.
Are
But
they?
yeah, but I love your idea of starting with yourself and that self regulation and understanding. You know, oftentimes when we get caught up in that we feel like the whole world is out to get us. We need to take a step back and look at ourselves, and that takes a lot of vulnerability sometimes. But
Mhm.
because I don't know about you, I'm never wrong. So if I made the choice, then I was right. But I love that piece of it, and then talking to people and sharing, the really zoning in on the shared experiences,
Yeah.
I think is also such a beautiful idea. But Juanita asks if you have any advice on reasoning with people who are not open to listen. So let's say I'm reaching out to people and trying to bring them all together and have this kumbaya moment, but there's somebody who's just not getting it, or doesn't want to get it, or just doesn't agree, and they're not coming along. What
Yeah.
how can you sort of influence somebody? So how can somebody with a lot of emotional intelligence kind of influence somebody who may have a little bit less?
You see, that's again where empathy comes in. If you have such a person in the office or around you or in your team, I would say, take the person aside. This is never it's never a good idea to kind of win somebody over in public. Could lead to unnecessary stress for both parties. But to sit and really look into a person's eyes and listen to what they have to say. Listen to where they are coming from, because quite often this kind of thing of not wanting to be part of the team, not wanting to get on board, swimming upstream, that kind of thing is more than often a manifestation of fear, a fear of what is going to happen to me in my future. What is going to happen to my family? Am I still going to have this job in a while? What will happen to me if I say that I'm not happy to be back? Everybody's so happy and I'm not. It might just be fear that is causing somebody to react in a rather antisocial way. So if one can understand where a person comes from, but genuinely try to understand and genuinely try to connect with somebody, and this is an emotional intelligence moment again, for especially for us leaders, but also for people who are your peers, who can see that somebody is upstream or that they're battling.
Yeah.
It's fear, it's uncertainty, and even if just one person tries to really understand your heart, I think that could lead to somebody opening up a little bit more. Look, not everybody is going to be on board all of the time. Um, and one has to understand that as well. But as if we can get most of the people on board most of the time, working together to make it nice for themselves and each other, I think it's a win-win situation.
Yeah.
What one could also do is to help such a person who is battling, who is obviously struggling to get back in the swing of things and maybe lashing out in whichever way, to make that work environment nice for them. I mean, what is it going to take for you to just say, I'm going to make tea. Would you like a cup? Just do something. The small things matter. It's in the
Right.
detail. And making your work environment as nice as possible for yourself, but then also for somebody else. And common courtesy goes a long way, huh? A long, long way. We are so quick if somebody is a bit offish. Oh, I'm not going to greet him again. Instead of just stay courteous, remain courteous. Ask, how are you? If you're going to mean it. Don't ask if you don't mean it. But try reaching out, and you'd be surprised how this giving of your energy, of yourself, of your time, of your effort can change somebody else's reaction to you and the workplace in general.
Right.
It's it's
Yes.
it's a proven age-old method. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love how you were saying, ask if you mean it. Ask how you're doing if you mean it, because I often talk about the fact that before COVID, if I asked you how are you and you said anything but fine, how are you? I would slowly back out of the room. If you start throwing like, oh, well, my dog just died and my car broke down, I'm like, okay, like, no. The culturally acceptable thing to say is great. How are you? And,
Exactly.
and then during COVID, it became the opposite. If somebody said, great, how are you? You're like, do you not know what's happening outside? How can you be great? We're always sort of judging, and it's you're not really asking the question. You're not really looking for the answer. But in this moment where we're all recovering from a trauma, really, you know,
Yes.
like actually asking the question and listening. And,
Yes.
a popular topic that started coming up over the pandemic was this idea of toxic positivity, where right. So somebody is complaining to you, and you tell them, "Oh, look at the bright side," or "Look at the silver lining," and everything always needs to be positive. And instead of owning their feelings and letting them know that it's okay to feel that way. And I think that it's so in line with what you were talking about in terms of making sure that you actually care, and that if somebody's not going along, it's not because they're a bad person, right? They have their own motivations, and you really have to put yourself in their shoes, which comes back to this empathy piece again, right?
That's it. That's it. And it's so beautiful and wonderful that now, after COVID, during COVID, we are really listening out for how are you? We are listening for the answer. That's
Right.
wonderful. Isn't that wonderful? It's a great thing that happened.
Yeah.
Um, the other beautiful thing is positivity, emotional intelligence, applying empathy, learning empathy. The more you give, the more you get.
Hmm.
It never runs out. It begets itself. And it's marvelous, and it's just so easy to start. Just do it. I People often ask me, Heidi, where do you get the energy to do all the things you do? And energy begets energy. You really just need to make a start. It's the
Right.
hardest part is to make a start.
Yes.
And the wonderful thing about this is, at the risk of sounding Pollyanna, the wonderful thing about this is you can do it all by yourself in an instant. It can change somebody else's life, but it doesn't just change that person, it changes you.
Yeah.
And it snowballs. It's fantastic. And just I want to get back to that thing of coming back to the office and not necessarily wanting to be there.
Hmm.
Practical things. Now, we've spoken about the mental and emotional things, which are for me absolutely most important. But practically, you can do things like put a little flower next to your laptop or to your computer. Put a picture of a loved one there. Make it nice for yourself. Have your favorite coffee. Have a sachet of it, or do something really nice. Buy a color pen that you love. Um, I love post-it notes, and I've got the best. It's a silly thing to love, but I dig them.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
post-it notes everywhere, and it's a purple for this kind of thing and green for that. And get nice colors and little things that make life nice for yourself. Make sure that you drink enough water. Stay hydrated. You know how one can get hungry. You can
Yeah.
also get thirsty. you know,
You heard
drink
it here
enough.
first, inventing words right here on the water cooler.
Make sure that you stay hydrated. Make sure that you take little walks if you're stuck in an office block. A little walk, if you can do it in nature, take a break. You don't have to eat for a whole hour that you have lunch.
Right.
Sit
Right.
outside if you can, if the weather's good. It is freezing cold in my country at the moment, but outside in the sun is wonderful. And doing little things like that, being in touch with nature. Nature feeds us. Nature makes us positive. Nature helps us to handle things so much better. Walking is incredible. Walking is the best stress reliever ever. And it's phenomenal. And you don't need to be fit. You just need to be safe, especially in South
Yes.
Africa.
Right.
Find a way. Find a way. Where there's a will, there is a way.
Yeah.
It's doing all these little, small, practical things that make your life easier. And if
Right.
your life is easy for yourself, it's so much easier for you to help somebody else make their life easier, or to be nice to somebody, or to be civil, or to be courteous.
Right. And I I think all of those things are amazing for me to help myself, but also we need to be careful what we put on other people, because again, the ways we've experienced this are so different, even though it's the same thing. And you and I had talked about it before. I'm not going to out you to say which side of the fence you're on, but anybody who's viewing this right now, whether on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, if you could put in the chat whether you are back to work or solo. This isn't what you actually are doing. This is what you prefer. You just want to get back to work, or you want to be on your own. So back to work or solo. I want to see in the chat what people want, because there is such a divide, and some people are going to be re-entering the workplace looking like oh my god, people like hungry for some social interaction, while other people are going to need their space, and they're not just going to go and embrace it all, right? And I said I wasn't going to out you, but you can out yourself if you want.
I'm going to out myself. I love working from home.
Yeah.
I am loving it. My work as a university lecturer has been online most of the past 14, 15 months, and I'm loving it.
Yeah.
But I'm a screen acting lecturer, so working on a screen works for me. I realize it's not that easy for everybody else, or for all the people listening to us. But I think working from home, you really need to be disciplined, and you need to be self-motivating, very much so, in order to do that. Look, I think most importantly, especially, and I keep referring back to my country, South Africa, those of us who still have jobs are very, very fortunate and very grateful. So we do what it takes to get the job done. I know that the majority of my colleagues at the university prefer working from there. So they are going to have to make working from home, nice for themselves until such time as we can go back. And when we go back, I am going to have to apply myself to dealing with and coping with the situation there. But my granny said one can get used to anything. It's worth remembering, it's worth remembering.
Yeah.
And my dad always says, if it's not sickness or death, it's not a problem. It's not. You have to be willing to change. If you are not going to be willing to change and to adapt, I think it's going to be a soul death for anybody who cannot adapt, especially in this with a big thing like this, working from home or working from an office or a central place, having to go into work. It's going to have to be adapt or die.
Right. And the beauty is, on this end of it, leaders can help with this transition into whatever their new normal is, and help people cope with it. On the other end of COVID, we were all just thrown into it. So a
Mm.
virtual team wasn't really a virtual team. It was a team that just suddenly went virtual, right? And
Yes.
it's a completely different thing. It needs to be managed and run and
Yes.
participated in different ways. I remember the first speech I did on camera like this, and I'm just giving a keynote into the camera, and and somebody told me to stop yelling because I'm like, oh, I forgot I'm not on a stage, right? It's a maybe I should take your screen acting class,
Yes.
but but it did take adaptation and learning that this is a different skill set. It's a different medium, and I think that planning really helps, and it's something that we didn't have the ability to take advantage of the first time around. But it
But
would really
David,
be
how did
horrible.
you grow? You grew so much. You acquired this new skill set.
Yeah, I don't know about
Look
that.
at
I'm still very loud on screen. That's
I think you sound amazing. From a screen acting lecturer perspective, you are top notch.
nice.
Um,
Thank you.
so you should be proud of yourself. Look what you accomplished. You learned these things. You couldn't do this before, and certainly not as comfortably as you are doing it now. And I think we should all look back a year ago, a year and a half ago. How far have you come? It's not about adapting to working from home and remotely and now wanting to be stuck there. Congratulate yourself for the growth that you've had. You've shown yourself what you can do, how you can adapt.
Right.
Now you're going to adapt again.
I
So
love
you're
it.
going to grow more. You're going to learn new skills because people have changed in this time that you were not together. And the dynamics have changed. Now you are going to learn to interact again, but in a different way and physically interact. This is fantastic. This is wonderful. Focus on the growth. Look back, see how far you've come, and be proud of it. And let that inspire you to now go to the next level because the brain is not like an elastic, our mind. It's not like when you let it go, it goes back to the original size. No, it expands. And then if you push a little more and it expands more and more and more and more. It's limitless.
Yeah.
It's limitless. And that alone, oh, I'm so excited that we've come so far as a species. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I love that you're going there because this is some of the principles of change management is you're supposed to find some sort of change that somebody was successful within to highlight that to show them that they can be successful again. Well, we've got the case study right here already,
Yeah.
right? So we have a
Yes.
question about the Great Resignation, which is you had been talking about what you're seeing in South Africa, where people are just grateful to have a job. Here in America, it's hard to find employees for certain lines of work, and so many people are looking to change jobs, if not career. This question is whether we feel that freelancing is the way forward and what that would mean, I guess, within the context of the
Mm.
future of work and emotional intelligence, and maybe even the importance of emotional intelligence. Yeah, do you have any
Yes.
thoughts on that?
The great resignation. Look, what I can say is there have been many resignations that I'm aware of in the different fields of work that I have been involved in and observed over the last while. So yes, people are grateful to have jobs, but towards the middle to the end of last year, there was also this great resignation thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
And also in January, February of this year. Um, what I want to say about that is you need to, because everything is still very uncertain, not make a decision hastily. Really think it through. Don't resign with your heart. Resign with your heart and your mind combination.
Right.
Because I know the heart, it has a lot to do. We can't get away from, we've been talking about how emotional work is for
Right.
anybody and everybody. So I really would say give it some very, very good thought and find somebody, whether they work with you or whether it's a family member or a friend or whoever that can be, or a mentor who can be objective and help you decide. Two heads are always better than one, especially if you have a family to look after.
Right.
Especially if you have responsibilities and financial responsibilities. Freelancing is wonderful because there you are pretty much your own boss. But I think to go into a freelancing career from a steady job into a freelancing world right now at this point in time, certainly in my country, would be exceptionally risky. I would say ride it out a few months, give it a few months. But if you resign, when you resign, don't burn your bridges.
Yeah.
Don't leave in a huff and a flurry because you are frustrated and emotionally overloaded and you just don't want to be back at work because you prefer home. Think about it very, very carefully. Make the two lists, the pros and the cons. What am I sure of now, negatively and positively, and what am I going to what can I expect from my future, whether you're going into a steady job or into a freelance career. And then also, try and if you're intent on leaving your current employment, try and slowly but surely after hours get into something else. Try and do it in tandem. I'm not saying steal hours from work or like and so on.
Right.
What I'm saying is just slowly but surely start thinking about it. If you may be wanting to become an entrepreneur, you want to open your own business, you want to go freelance, start getting a feel for it so that you have a little bit of a baseline income and baseline stability before you do the resignation thing. Speak to, if you're lucky. I'm extremely blessed with a fantastic line manager at the university, whom I can bounce these things off. So if you have such a person at work, especially somebody in a position of leadership there, speak to those people. I don't think a resignation from a steady job should be something that you attempt on your own. I
Yeah.
think work people,
Yeah, I love all of that. And there's this idea, we see that the turnover intention is
yeah.
really high here in America. There's so many people looking to leave their jobs. According to one study globally, we're looking at 41% of global employees looking to leave their current job within the next year. That's a very crazy number, but I think it's really important to recognize what that's saying and to recognize the damage that happens if somebody who wants to leave doesn't leave, right? So if you just keep giving them more money to handcuff them to the desk so that they can't leave, they can't afford to leave. But when I went out on my own, I actually had the support from my managers.
Yes.
And because they wanted me to get the hell out of there. No, I had their support because they knew this was my passion and this was what I was going to do, and they could support me, and I could make it my 5-year plan instead of feeling so constrained that I just have to do it now. And I could excel and learn everything possible within that job and that career to then take with me. So it was almost like I had mentorship throughout. And you would think, why would they do that? Why would they want to get rid of somebody? But in reality, it was great for everybody involved because I was moving on one way or another, and by supporting me, I was able to support them, give them more time there, and really, it was so mutually beneficial the time that I
That's
had there.
wonderful. And isn't that just marvelous? That's what life is about. This kind, instead of seeing how much money you can get out of somebody wringing people like towels, just you rather see how we can help each other. And it brings us right back to that thing of you help me and then it helps me
Yeah.
and you, and it's mutually beneficial. That's wonderful. And the way that you explained how you gained confidence through this process, this rather supported, drawn out process of resignation, but
Yeah.
it gave you confidence to then go out on your own. Because it's scary. It's very, very scary. I started out, as a freelancer in a performance in South Africa. It was insane. I freelanced 20 years of my life.
Mhm.
20 years before I took the job at the university,
Yeah.
which I've had for 6 years now. I still am amazed when my phone beeps once a month with the salary having come in. I
Yeah.
still am not used to it.
Right.
After decades of freelancing. So it's not for sissies, but it can be done. Millions of people have done it, and but it's so much more if you can go out there with this confidence that you've gained, and the beautiful human relationships that you have built and maintained probably throughout
Right.
your career and throughout the years that have passed. I think that is amazing, and I would love for us, everybody, to have a mentality of what do I want to achieve instead of how much money do I want to make.
Hmm.
What is it that I want to do? I'm not saying money is not important. I think money is extremely important, and I love money. But money is not my number one goal.
Right.
My number one goal is what do I want to do for other people? What is my just cause? What is my motto? What is my thing? And it's
Right.
not making money. It's not first on the list.
Right. I
It's
think we're all searching for significance and
that,
to have an impact of in some way.
and you'll only achieve that if you are people oriented,
Yeah.
not money oriented.
Right.
It's like in a business, you're working. Who are your clients? Who are your customers?
Hmm.
It's not about the product. It's about the people
Hmm.
behind the product or behind the service. It must be about that and human connection. And then a beautiful byproduct of that is money.
Right. Right. I absolutely love that because it really is, and that's whether you're working from home or you're working from the office. Sometimes it's
Yes.
harder when you're working from home to make those human connections, or working from the office often it's difficult to see. It's difficult
Mm,
to see what kind of impact you're having because you get so stuck in
yeah.
the daily everything. But working from
Yes.
home, it almost becomes even more difficult because
Yes.
we're one more step removed from the end product. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
Dion said that he tried to resign last year to go full time freelance. In return, he got a new contract that allows him to freelance, and he got a promotion. He says, "I think communication is key," and I think that is so true. And oftentimes we when we're going through stress and we have this anxiety and we think we have to keep it hidden, and
Yeah.
and it just builds and builds. But that
Yeah.
sort of conflict avoidance, when we don't even know if it's going to be conflict, stands in our way.
That's
And
it.
sometimes it's just about starting the conversation.
That's it. Starting the conversation, and as you said, much harder when you're at home, and we're doing it on a screen. But you know, actually taking the first step and video calling somebody, I
Mm.
would say, is make a concerted effort to communicate. I'm scared of text because you can't hear a person's tone
Mm-hmm.
in a text, although it's better than no communication,
Right.
right? Or
Right.
if you have an eloquent way of expressing yourself in a text or email, writing a heartfelt email or message to a colleague or somebody or a client or a customer, please tell me honestly how you felt. Or if you want to leave a voice note, do something,
Yeah.
to keep those lines of communication open. And I would say also, um, be the one to start it, because I find that sometimes we're waiting for each other.
Hmm.
No, wait until he phones me. Oh no, I haven't heard from her yet. But what is preventing me from just picking up? Hello, I'm just checking in on you.
Right.
And even if it's not work, a
Right.
cousin, a friend, somebody whom you haven't spoken to in a long, long time, dropping a line, just saying, "Hi, I'm just popping in to find out if you are still healthy and safe."
Mm-hmm.
Making somebody's day like that. And why can't you ask your line manager or your leader or your whoever is a higher up in the food chain than you? Why can't you ask them that? Why must we wait for the? I think so many leaders long for one of their people or their staff or their colleagues or co-workers to just say, "How's it, David? I'm just checking. Are you okay?"
Right.
Because I know my line manager at work at the university often asks us how we are doing.
Right.
And one day I sent him a mail. I said, Has anyone asked you how you are doing lately?"
Mm-hmm.
And he so appreciated that,
Yeah.
because we think they are there and they are now top structure, whether we're working from home or not. So
Right.
we shouldn't be speaking to them.
Right.
No, speak, ask,
Right.
reach out.
Turns out those
And
leaders are human too.
that's it. And it takes nothing from you to do that.
Yeah.
Nothing. And it's again that energy begets energy.
I love it. So, thank you, Heidi. We're running out of time, but I want to give people like one last thought. If you've got
Yes.
something that you want to share with us.
In my rapid transformational studies that I did through Marissa Peer, oh, fantastic course. She taught us this: whenever you're struggling or whenever life gets tough, or whether it's home or office or whatever, tell yourself this, say it out loud and clear: I have phenomenal coping skills. I have phenomenal coping skills. I have phenomenal coping skills. And that makes all the difference in my life.
Great. I have phenomenal coping skills.
Yes, you
That's
do.
usually I find them in the kitchen, but that's that's for
Whatever it
another
takes.
conversation. So I hope that everybody enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Heidi, this has been an absolute pleasure. I put little QR codes on top of us. If you want to contact Heidi, just hold your phone on top of her QR code, and you'll get her whole link tree, all of her information. You'll be able to find everything, even about her acting, which is amazing. I saw there's a movie coming out. Is that right? Or maybe
Uh,
more was older.
Soon.
Soon? Okay, cool. So
Thank you.
definitely reach out to Heidi. She's amazing. She's got this huge resume of so many certifications. She can really help you if you're struggling here. So
Thank
please reach out to Heidi, and I hope that you will join us next week when we're going to have Lindell Von Schill on the Water Cooler Wednesday, where we're going to be talking about post-pandemic challenges in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Touching on some of the same themes that we brought up today, this is going to be a conversation that you do not want to miss. So we hope to see you back here next Wednesday, same time, whatever that time is, whether you're in Baltimore or South Africa or anywhere else in the world, whatever this time is, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but I don't speak GMT, so I'm not sure what that means. But we hope to see you back here, and we hope that you'll be in touch. Thank you again, Heidi.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Keep well, keep safe.